So when I was in high school, I had a class that was built around like a bunch of different like technology things. We had some programming, we had some like Photoshop, some Adobe, some general like web surfing stuff, just a bunch of like tech things. And one of the things that we did was we worked with GameMaker, and I had a lot of fun working with GameMaker. And I liked the code, like the drag and drop code aspect of it, which I came here and realized that's not necessarily how it works. But still, at the time, I was very interested in that, and so I wanted to pursue programming as a career. And as a gamer, gaming just felt like the logical next step.
Over time, I would look into like stuff and learn that video games actually take a lot more work than a lot of people assume. Like you can't just draw something and then all of a sudden say that's my game or whatever. You gotta put in a lot of work. You gotta model it, you gotta texture it, you gotta code it, and I'm never gonna want to code anything ever. Coding's awful. So that's why I'm an artist. Because I can't code, and I like drawing pretty pictures, I guess.
I like organizing a team and getting things done and kind of like making my ideas a reality. But aside from that, like game design's really not that appealing. A lot of the stuff you have to deal with as opposed to doing other programming is awful.
Like you gotta want to do it. You can't just be like, hey, I like playing games, and then you don't know how to make games. You gotta put in some effort.
There's a lot more steps than I thought. And it's not as easy to get something from paper into a game as I thought it would be. There's just so many moving parts and pieces. That's all.
So I was looking at like a lot of the tactical RPGs and turn-based strategy games out there, stuff like Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy Tactics and a lot of things like that. I really like those games. And there's no real way to play those against people. So we kind of just boiled it down to like a chess game, but everyone starts with a different combination of pieces depending on which of their factions they play.
It started as Spencer's idea years ago. And I helped him test it last semester when we were still on paper, not in a computer, but we were playing on tiles that we had physically.
I'm an only child, so I was like bored a lot of the time sitting at home. My parents would let me play video games for so much every day. So I had like a lot of like board game things. I had like some Heroes Escape stuff and some like D&D miniatures, and I just kind of like threw together a game really quickly. And I was having a lot of fun with it, and I just kind of like played it and like made a couple factions and like did stuff, and it ended up being like, I don't want to say great, but surprisingly good.
Yeah, he tested this game like crazy. Like he since he was in like high school, I think, or whatever. He like played this game with his friends on like this little hex board or whatever, and that was kind of cool. We'd play like the demo or whatever in Spencer's room, just like the real board game.
Fast forward to like junior year, I realized senior game was coming up, so I just went to the best programmer I knew and the two best artists that I knew and went, all right, here's a game. Are you on board? And they all said yes.
Most progress in the senior game projects is done outside of the classroom. And I think there are upsides and downsides to that. I think that more frequent class periods would be better because, or at least for some people, because it keeps them more on track and it makes them use that time to work. Like, even if it was just, this is a lab class and everyone here is going to work on the project, I think it would be more effective.
So Steve worked on getting like our basic hex like element done. No art, just you can move pieces on this hex grid and it's displayed to you and you can get some information. And then Dan made a map mock-up that we used for like almost half a year. And then we slowly started developing pieces. And then once the semester actually started, we pitched it, people liked it, so we kept going. Over the course of the first semester, we hammered out all of the rest of the UI that would get changed. And we got two factions in art that we redid later. And basically we had like a skeleton of a game. You were able to play it, it was fine, but it wasn't like great, and it was a little counterintuitive.
Well, I did the UI, and then we went to like showcases and stuff, and they were like, hey, it would be cool if you did this with the UI, and then we did it, and then the next showcase. We just kept on changing it based on what people said, and people think it's getting better, I guess.
Initially, the setback was we wanted to do full character models. The issue was that I originally didn't. Me, Matt, or no one actually didn't anticipate how hard organic modeling is. I just thought it would be a very whatever thing, but as I learned as I went through my classes, organic modeling is not easy. It takes forever to get one thing done. So from that, we kind of reworked the way we would make models. We made them more character-like, so that they were still visually appealing, but they also, we wouldn't have to, I guess, animate them in a certain way. Like we don't really need to animate them because they're basically chess pieces. So it lightens up the workload immensely while making the game still look good.
Going logically, adding new stuff. Steve was going to start working on networking, but then we went to the Mass Digi pitch contest, and we didn't win. We got a lot of really good feedback, especially regarding like maybe adding some more features. So we all kind of like sat down and we discussed it, and we agreed on runes, which were going to be an on-map interactable, and spells, which were going to be player-based, and the player would be able to cast them once per turn, and they'd have like a couple different levels to make it more interesting than just here's some spells. After all of that was kind of hammered out, we started working on, we had the last two factions implemented by this point. Dan and Matt had to go back and redo the first two factions, and we had to redo the HUD again because we needed to account for spells in it now. We got some more feedback that was changed some stuff around there.
It needed more depth than it originally had, because it seemed a bit too much like, it was too much like chess. Way too much like it. It was chess with numbers. So we needed to add something. That's where the whole idea for spells came about. And now that we're putting spells in the game, there's definitely, well, we haven't put them in yet, but there's definitely probably going to be a lot more depth than what you see in the current version of Cordillera.
So every year, our school features 3 or 4 games to go to PAX, and they give you exhibitor passes, and they let you showcase your game on their hardware at a booth, which is really cool. So we got to do that because we were one of the more finished projects at the point where we were at PAX time. So we took our build there, and that was really great too. We got a lot of people to come up and play us. We got a lot of really, really great feedback. We got a lot of interesting comments from some people. Everyone's got their own 2 cents that they want to give after they play a game that's not finished. But it was pretty cool. We had a lot of fun. It was very tiring because it was just me, Matt, and me, Matt, and Steve. Dan was not with us for a whole weekend, just standing, telling people how to play this game. And I would definitely do it again, but just maybe not for a couple months.
Yeah, it was fun. Got to show it to a lot of people and eat lots of candy and be like real professionals.
After we graduate, we'll be able to push a lot harder without like the impetus of school. We can get kind of into a groove with work and keep working on this.
Once we get out of college, at least every week, each of us are probably going to put 10 hours into the game. For me, it's mostly going to be building new maps. For Matt, it's going to be texturing those maps. For Steve, Steve's going to do the coding as he always does, being the Unity wizard, and Spencer is going to do the Spencer thing and design it, I guess, and also bring it to people and like be, hey, this is Cordillera. Probably without Spencer, a lot of people wouldn't know what this game is, honestly. So kudos to Spencer. And
we made like a really polished core product, which works really well for what we needed for school, but we still have a couple of important features and a lot of quality of life stuff like sound and animations and things like that I guess technically don't have to exist in the game, but really need to for anyone to enjoy it. The biggest thing we need to do is networking, and once that's finished, we want to go to early access to kind of help fund our quality of life, make that a little bit easier, so that way we're not working on this game forever. Money helps me, we can commission stuff. It's like things like music. It's like, well, we could make that and be subpar. We could use free music and it would be alright, but if we could get some money, we could hire people and actually get something made.